Alright, what is happening? How is everybody doing today? My name is Chuck, and welcome back to a brand new Call of Duty Modern Warfare Warzone video. Today, I'm going to be taking you guys through in-depth into my #1 best M4A1 class setup to use in all of Warzone. The M4 is one of the most dominant weapons, and I want you guys to have the best class possible, so that way, no matter what, from the gun attachments to the perks to your tactical to your lethal, you guys are 100% set for every single situation. Before we get any farther into the video, if you guys need some Call of Duty points on your account, make sure you guys drop a like on this video, hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on, and make sure you guys comment down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys would use those Call of Duty points for. So not wasting any time and jumping on into this, you guys know that the M4A1 is undoubtedly one of the best assault rifles in multiplayer and also into Warzone, and it's also definitely one of the most highly used guns. Apart from the Grau 5.56, you guys definitely know that this is an amazing weapon. So my first attachment that I'm actually going to be running on my M4A1 is actually going to be the monolithic suppressor, and I use the monolithic suppressor because it has that sound suppression for the bonus, and it also has better damage range, which is actually incredibly beneficial, especially when you're playing Warzone. Contrary to previous Call of Duty titles, usually a suppressor would take away from your range, but this one actually does help increase your range and also your accuracy, so it's definitely a welcome addition. The only downside is that you're going to have a little bit less on aim down sight speed and your aim locking steadiness, but that's okay because we have other attachments that are definitely going to round this out and make it that much more beneficial for you to run the monolithic suppressor. The second attachment I have on my M4A1 is actually going to be a bit of a toss-up. Sometimes some of you guys like to run the Corvus Custom Marksman, and then a lot of other people like myself like running the stock M16 Grenadier Barrel. The Grenadier Barrel, whatever you guys like to call it. I love running the stock M16 Grenadier Barrel just because it does help me with my damage range, my bullet velocity, and also with my recoil control. And it does also give me some pretty cool iron sights, which I find are incredibly useful, and I really enjoy the way they happen to look. The Corvus Custom Marksman Barrel, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't quite have as much punch when it comes down to your damage range, your bullet velocity, and also a little bit of that recoil control. So you have a little bit less of your aim down sight speed and your movement speed as a bit of a trade-off for having more, but I do think your stock M16 barrel is going to be your top tier choice when you're coming to Warzone, as you want to have the most amount of damage range and bullet velocity, and especially recoil control when you're going into those engagements, whether it be close, medium, or long range. Having all three of those things is definitely going to give you that upper hand advantage. The next up is actually something what a lot of people kind of also debate on in terms of running a foregrip. I actually enjoy myself running the Commando foregrip, and I kind of run the same sort of setup for multiplayer and for Warzone. Some people like to swap out the Commando foregrip for something like, let's say, the Ranger or the Merc or something like that, but you can actually also run the Commando foregrip just because, you know, it helps really well with that recoil stabilization and also your aiming stability, and it really doesn't impact your movement speed all that much or your aim down sight speed. Sometimes like some of the other underbarrel attachments actually will. So the Commando foregrip, especially for me, is my go-to basically for any and all situations. I feel like the M4's recoil is super easily controlled, and especially because I have that stock M16 Grenadier Barrel on there, I mean, I really have basically two of these things in combination that are really gonna help me out and ultimately allow me to land a lot of shots on target, and I find that very useful. Next up for me is gonna be my 60 round magazine on the extended clip. So you have the option to run the 50 round, the 60 round, the 9mm 32 round mag, or the SOCOM 10 round. And I will tell you that you're never gonna want to run the Para 32 round mag with the 9mm rounds or the SOCOM 10 round, but you can definitely switch back and forth between the 50 and the 60 round, because I know the 50 round actually does have a little bit better movement speed, you know, and aim down sight speed compared to the 60 round. But you know, honestly, I really haven't found much of a disadvantage running the 60 round magazine at all, and I've really been using the 60 round for as long as I can remember, and I don't find any inherent issues with that. And especially because we are playing Warzone and we need those extra rounds to be able to go down range, sometimes having those extra 10 rounds in the magazine can really be a make or break type of situation when you're just actually, you know, running at people. And especially if you're playing trios and quads, I mean, man, there's going to be 3 to 4 people on you almost at all times and you're engaging somebody, so having those extra rounds can be very useful. And I would say, if it was me, run that 60 round magazine and don't go for the 50 round. It's way better, and you'll be thanking me later when you actually run that 60 round, and it does come in handy. For my final attachment on my M4, before we go over some of the perks, my secondary and everything else like that to round out this amazing class setup, I'm actually going to be running the Stippled grip tape, and this is going to help me with my aim down sight speed and my sprint to fire speed. So basically, this is going going to help me out in some of those categories where the other sort of attachments were kind of more or less giving me negatives, like the barrel and also the suppressor and a little bit of my magazine. So this attachment is more or less to counterbalance some of those other ones. You can definitely go for something like, let's say, a stock and not like a rear stippled grip tape, but I personally find the stippled grip tape is my go-to to actually round out my entire M4A1 gun attachments to basically have all 5 and make this an incredibly lethal gun at close, medium, and long range, and also to be able to use this in multiplayer and Warzone. This works beautifully in both, and I honestly would not really change much of the thing unless you're going for a lot more mobile type of loadout, or maybe you just really want to switch something up and do something entirely different. Moving on down to my secondary, because the secondary is actually a huge thing as well. I know a lot of people, when you play aggressive, you tend to either run like basically one of 2 things, and that was maybe either to run, let's say, like an SMG as a backup, maybe you're running the akimbo snake shots as a backup, or I should say 3 things, including the RPG. So basically those were your 3 things you're going to run, but basically since the akimbo snake shots got nerfed, I know a lot of people are switching over to running akimbo Renettis. Then I would say that you should definitely throw on the akimbo Renettis, and just, I don't really have a specific class set up for the akimbo Renetti. All you have to basically make sure is that you have on the akimbo, you have on your laser sight, you have on, you know, your 27 round magazine, and basically just round it out like the same way exactly you would with your snake shots, because ultimately if you're trying to run and gun and you're just really trying to push a lot of people, having that secondary on there that's going to allow you to get really up close and personal in their face and take people out extremely fast is going to be super useful. The single Renetti by itself is actually really good, and throwing on akimbo just makes it even better. So especially when you're getting up into those close quarters engagements, you guys are going to thank me later. Definitely make sure you grind out those attachments, just because that's exactly what I'm doing as well. I've used them in game before, and man, they are absolutely god tier. Moving on down to the perk setup, is I needed to stress to you guys that the perks are incredibly, you know, crucial to how well you can do in Warzone. So my tier 1 perk is actually going to be cold-blooded, and you can swap out cold-blooded for something like, let's say, EOD if you feel like you're just getting blown up way too much. But cold-blooded is basically going to allow you to kind of more or less stay off of a thermal optic, and I know a lot of people love running thermal optics on their sniper rifles. I myself being one of those people, I just kind of really like the way it actually happens to look. So if you're trying to stay off of those thermal optics and not really get sniped or picked off from a distance like that, you can definitely throw in cold-blooded, or you can swap it over to EOD if you really want to go that route. But personally, I stick to running cold-blooded just because it is my first tier perk of choice. My second perk choice is actually going to be Ghost, and I will say that you definitely should be running Ghost on almost all of your classes, if not all of them, unless you just really don't care about all the massive UAV spam. I mean, I love, you know, being able to, you know, sneak up on people, not exactly having them know where I'm coming from, because it really can make the difference between life and death, and especially if you're not just in a crazy, aggressive, experienced player. Having Ghost on can definitely help you out a little bit, especially when people are spamming those UAVs, as it only costs $4,000, and if you're playing something like trios or quads, the probability of some people, you know, pooling together that $4,000 to get a UAV or 2 or 3 to get that advanced UAV, you know, it's incredibly likely. I don't see too many advanced UAVs, but squads calling in actual regular UAVs, that happens all the time in Battle Royale, so you definitely should be running the Ghost as your second tier perk. For my third tier perk, I'm actually going to be running Amped, and the only reason I'm actually going to be running Amped is because I love to play aggressive, and, you know, granted, I'm staying off the radar as well. I want to be able to swap over to my akimbo Renettis when I'm running around and not really have to wait for that long reload time or that long, you know, more or less swap time. I just really enjoy the way I'm able to swap back and forth between my primary and my secondary when I have on Amped, and also having Amped is incredibly beneficial, especially if you're running something like an RPG, as that will take a very, very long time to be able to, you know, take out and swap back and forth. So running Amped is really good. It also helps you to rocket launch your reload speed. And so if I was you guys, definitely throw that on there if you're going to be running around a little bit aggressive, as it will definitely make a difference in some of those gunfights you're going to either win or lose, primarily just because, let's say you run out of ammo on your primary and you want to challenge that person before they're able to get a reload off. So definitely run Amped. It's incredibly beneficial. To round out my loadout for my lethal, I happen to run the C4 just because it's really awesome, and I love being able to throw C4s at trucks, you know, any sort of vehicle, and also at people that are trying to camp behind something. It really does help out with that, and just more or less weakening people. I can find it, you know, pretty useful for that. And also for my tactical, I tend to run the heartbeat sensor. So for anybody that's not necessarily running Ghost, I can actually see them on the heartbeat. And since a lot of people like to run Overkill as their secondary perk, I would definitely say that the heartbeat sensor can really help you out in terms of if you're trying to find somebody that's camping in a building and they don't have ghost on, that heartbeat sensor will save your butt, because it's definitely saved mine a couple of times. And I really do thank some of those Warzone wins for specifically me having the heartbeat sensor. But that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for coming through on today's video. That is my #1 M4A1 class setup loadout for you guys to actually be able to use. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like on it, hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on. Definitely make sure you guys comment down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys back here again tomorrow with yet another brand new video. Just remember, Triple Cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.